A skeptic, a narco terrorist, and a stable genius walk into a bar. Exploring Michael Shermer's Twitter hot take on Maduro by George's Ghost. In the year of our Lord, 1776, when the flames of liberty were kindled anew upon the American shore, our forefathers proclaimed that all men are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is in this spirit of enlightened resolve, drawn from the wellsprings of reason and justice, that we contemplate the recent extraordinary rendition of Nicolás Maduro by the agents of these United States, a deed which hath stirred the conscience of the world. Herein we shall discourse upon the reflections of the learned Michael Shermer, as expressed in his public missives upon the platform known as X, wherein he invokes the memorable oration of Colonel Nathan Jessup, portrayed by the actor Jack Nicholson in the dramatic work entitled A Few Good Men. Shermer employs this quotation to illuminate the Maduro regime as the paramount exemplar of that pernicious doctrine, too big to fail, whereby a malefactor ascends to the throne of dictatorship, thereby cloaking himself in the impenetrable armor of sovereign immunity, and unleashes the arts of fifth-generation warfare upon neighboring realms for personal gain, at grievous cost to his own afflicted populace. Furthermore, we shall examine how the sacred powers vested in the President by our venerable Constitution not only empower, but impose a solemn duty upon Donald Trump to rectify such egregious injustices, that the lamp of freedom may shine undimmed. Let us first turn to the sage observations of Mr. Shermer, a philosopher of skepticism and chronicler of human folly, who, in his epistles dated the 3rd day of January in the year 2026, addresses the downfall of the Maduro tyranny. In one such dispatch, Shermer recalls the impassioned testimony of Colonel Jessup, who declares unto the youthful advocate, "Son, we live in a world that has walls, and those walls have to be guarded by men with guns. Who's going to do it? You? I have a greater responsibility than you can possibly fathom. You don't want the truth, because deep down, in places you don't talk about at parties, you want me on that wall. You need me on that wall." Shermer applies this maxim to the toppling of Maduro's criminal dominion, implying that the guardians of liberty, those resolute men with arms, must sometimes undertake actions grotesque to the tender-hearted, yet indispensable for the preservation of order and justice. In another missive, he decries the impotence of the United Nations, which, bound by the chains of national sovereignty, refrains from intervening in failed states overrun by villains, asserting that such criminal polities forfeit their claim to sovereign recognition. Thus, Shermer contends, the intervention of these United States was not merely expedient, but a moral imperative, for sometimes men with guns are necessary for justice and freedom over criminal men with guns. At Michael Shermer. This invocation of Jessup's words serves as a poignant allegory for the Maduro regime's embodiment of too big to fail, a phrase borrowed from the annals of economic calamity, wherein institutions of vast scale evade accountability lest their collapse imperil the greater edifice. Maduro, once a mere functionary in the shadows of Chavez, hath elevated himself to the pinnacle of despotism, transforming Venezuela from a prosperous republic into a bastion of misery. By seizing the reins of a sovereign nation, he hath secured the ultimate immunity. No longer a common felon, susceptible to the constable's grasp, but a head of state, shielded by the veils of diplomacy and international comity. His depredations, narcotics trafficking, alliances with rogue empires such as Russia and China, and the subversion of democratic institutions exemplify this doctrine. Shermer's tacit endorsement of Maduro's removal underscores that such tyrants, deeming themselves inviolable, exploit the sanctity of borders to perpetrate crimes that spill beyond their realms, demanding a response from the virtuous nations of the earth. Moreover, The Maduro cabal hath waged what scholars term fifth-generation warfare, an insidious stratagem not of open battlefields, but of shadowy intrigues, disinformation, cyber incursions, and proxy conflicts, all for venal profit at the expense of Venezuela's wretched inhabitants. Under his sway, the once bountiful land hath been plundered, millions driven into exile, resources siphoned to enrich a coterie of oligarchs, and the populace reduced to penury amidst hyperinflation and famine. This warfare extends its tendrils to neighbors, fomenting instability in Colombia through narco alliances and menacing the Caribbean with illicit arms flows, while allying with adversaries of these United States to undermine hemispheric peace. In his view, Maduro's rendition represents not aggression, but the excision of a malignant growth that threatens the body politic of the Americas. Now, let us consider the constitutional edifice erected by our founders in 1787, which bestows upon the President powers both ample and obligatory in matters of foreign intercourse and national defense. Article 2, Section 2, declares him Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, empowering him to direct the forces of the Republic in repelling invasions and suppressing insurrections, nay, even to preempt perils that endanger our allies and interests abroad. The vesting clause endows him with the executive power, a broad mantle encompassing the conduct of diplomacy, the enforcement of treaties, and the protection of American citizens from foreign depredations. In the case of Maduro, indicted by our tribunals for narco terrorism and the corruption of justice, President Trump hath not only the authority, but the bounden duty to act. As the guardian of our republic's security, he must confront those who harbor terrorists, traffic in poisons that ravage our communities, and wage asymmetric wars that erode the foundations of liberty. To shrink from this charge would betray the oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, for inaction in the face of such iniquity invites further encroachments upon the rights of free peoples. In conclusion, as Shermer's invocations remind us, the pursuit of justice oft demands that we confront truths unpalatable to the faint of heart. The extraordinary rendition of Maduro, far from a breach of decorum, stands as a vindication of the principles enshrined in our Declaration, that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, and when they become destructive of these ends, it is the right, nay, the duty of the people and their sovereign representatives to alter or abolish them. May this act herald a new dawn for Venezuela, where the chains of tyranny are shattered and the blessings of liberty secured to posterity.